The following program is rated TVMA. This program may contain strong opinions, explicit language, and possible adult themes. The opinions expressed are not necessarily those of the Smoke Free Radio Network or its affiliates. This program is meant for mature adult audience. Viewer and listener discretion is advised.
That was interesting.
Another week is dead and gone. We're back again with Vaping in the Mic. This time it's episode 8. And tonight, and I kind of threw it out there yesterday, tonight is one of those nights where it's going to be a no-hold-barred conversation. Yesterday, I wigged out after a little while. There were a couple things that I just went off the deep end. One of them being this sign outside of the gas station that was advertising cigarettes. You know, you get $1.50 off for 2 packs of cigarettes. And turn around, and down at the bottom was this little dinky Surgeon General's wording, and I just went absolutely off the wrong end of the tracks. But it really started earlier than that. But it made me think, you know, I need to let people know tonight there may be a lot of vulgar or foul language because a lot of this is material that is near and dear to our heart, most of the vapors. And it does polarize people one way or the other. And as we go along, because tonight I've got not only, we're going to have just Kevin Crowley here. Now, Kevin is... I had to ask him, actually, earlier about if he had specific titles, because Kevin doesn't have any e-liquid line. He does not have a shop. He's actually a consumer, but he is also a very serious blogger for the vaping industry. And not only that, but he is as well a board member for the directors of the THR for Life. And what that is Tobacco Harm Reduction for Life. If you want, get out there, check out THR for Life. They've got a lot of very, very good, very interesting information material and things like that. But then, well, there's one more thing. He has recently begun working with David Goerlitz, the former Winston man, and even his own words, he is the executive in charge of keeping David out of jail, or at least counting bail money. David G, of course, has davidgmodelcitizen.com, and get a chance, check that out. But also joining us tonight, from all the way out in Vancouver, in Canada, is Mr. Bill Tarling. And Bill, again, another gentleman that doesn't have a liquid line. He doesn't have a shop. He is a consumer. He is an advocate. This guy, he searches the web for all kinds of material, links and information, and I can't tell you what. And the things that he finds is just amazing. I mean, absolutely amazing. For instance, here in my home state of Ohio, there was a major city, Akron, that was getting ready to think about doing a T21. I didn't know about it, and I don't know that there were a lot of it. Bill sent me a link to Akron's T21. I'm like, oh my God, okay. You know, but that's how much on top of that he is. So we've got Mr. Bill Tarling and also Mr. Kevin Crowley. Gentlemen, how are you doing this evening?
Pretty good, Mike. What's happening?
Doing well, except for one problem. Back on episode 1, I ordered a pizza, and it finally arrived, but it wasn't a fresh one. It was frozen.
Oh man, did you order DiGiorno's again?
I don't know what's going on with your orders.
Uh,
You got to get your pizza maker all straightened out. I
for
mean, they
for
didn't even
people
put enough featuring on it.
for people that don't know, the very first show that I did, the person that I was talking to, they kind of cut themselves short, and Bill, thank God Bill was there. Bill jumped in and helped me finish out the rest of the hour. But when I called him, he'd turn around and pretended that he was this extremely elderly, almost female, asking if this was about pizza. And honest to God, for a couple of moments, I just sat here going, "Oh shit! Did I order something? Did I call the wrong number?" But he was yanking my chain.
I'm going to want a refund.
That's the one. That's the one. So this evening, guys, we're going to be talking about just a mess of things that have been going along. The first thing that I want to talk about, and you guys jump in as we kind of go. If you've got something else that's on your brain, let me know. Massachusetts, and I printed out a lot of paper because it's difficult for me to link things directly in or to do things right now because my PC resources, as I go along, I'm getting better at it. It's just not all quite there yet. But here's the thing. The link now, things directly in there. I'd turn the audio off so that I can at least see. At it. No, shut up. It's just not all quite there. There. Now I can turn around and I can see some of the chat room as I go along. Massachusetts. Those people out there on the East Coast. The Massachusetts Attorney General is launching an investigation into popular e-cigarette maker. And you know that we're talking about Juul. The Attorney General said Tuesday she wants to find out whether California-based Juul Labs is tracking underage use of their products and whether its marketing practices are intentionally driving its popularity among young people. She said her office has sent subpoenas to Juul. Now, gentlemen, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think there's any real way for Juul to be able to track that kind of information. Would you say that's right or wrong?
I would say that's correct. I would say that they don't sell to anybody under 21 is what they're saying now. So how could they?
Yeah, they're basically saying you have to start tracking people that you're not even marketing to, and you have to provide us with all the information of the people that you're not marketing to.
Yeah, how the hell can that Attorney General even think logistically, realistically about trying to subpoena information that I mean exist. It's not there.
That's not the purpose of them doing it. The whole thing is a misdirection for the public, saying, "See, these companies and these vape things are the bad ones, and therefore we have to demand the information of them," which they know that there is no information because it's not being tracked. But the whole thing in public view is, "See, vaping bad. We're on it. Don't worry, we will save you."
Propaganda.
And that is the public perception, and that's what the whole thing is. It's just a smokescreen. Don't look behind the curtain. No. Believe in the wizard.
So what's going to happen when their subpoenas turn up zilch? Will they change the narrative of what they're saying all over again?
What's going to happen when somebody from the public finally questions why they're doing something that doesn't exist?
Basically, they're just going to stretch it out. They will recycle it. They will respin it as, we must go after why aren't these vape people telling us this information? What are they hiding? And so they'll just keep respinning it. And again, it's a don't look behind the curtain where the Wizard of Oz is.
Yep.
Believe us. These guys are bad and we're after them. And you can see for yourselves, they don't want to tell us the truth. So what are these vape people hiding? And that's how they'll spin it. And in the meantime, they can distract from every other thing, get anything else they want, flavor bans passed, everything else, nobody will question California. Why did you get rid of flavors? Why are you getting rid of the thing that will get people off smoking? This can distract people from that.
It's yelling fire in a theater. It really is.
It's
beyond stupid.
It gets me simply for the fact. It reminds me wholeheartedly a quote, and I remember it because it was in a fantastic movie called Swordfish. But the quote was by Harry Houdini that said, "What the eyes see and the ears hear, the mind will believe." And that's what it reminds me of, that they're showing you, oh, here's the paperwork, and we're going to talk about it, so it must be true.
That's what Bill just said. Pay no attention to the woman behind the curtain in this case. Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah.
But how do they even think that they can get away with that? Or does nobody really even question it?
Yeah, Tobacco Free Kids is already marketing for them for what they want the public to see. They've been doing it for months.
And don't forget, the whole thing about the ants, and this is where I've even questioned, like all these campaigns, anti-vaping campaigns, I'd almost like to see somebody in the U.S. check with the advertising bureau, because you have to be able to meet the demands of what you're claiming in your campaigns. So that's where it might be a possibility to press it. But the difference is, we're making the mistake of we're basing things on scientific research and facts. And the thing is, they are playing by Tobacco Playbook 101 techniques, same as the FDA has, same as most politicians do, the oil companies, they use the playbook technique. And what that is distract from the actual issue or topic. Yes. As long as you can present, oh, danger, Will Robinson, danger, you will keep the public not only looking the other way, and they'll ignore anything we have to say, but you say it enough times to them and people will automatically believe it.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way for them to avoid anything that might have scientific basis.
Okay,
and
now
there's no ethics.
So
no
that,
ethics at all.
So that I can turn around and understand when you said ANTS, and it is an acronym. For some of the people that are listening, they don't know what.
Yeah, the anti-nicotine and tobacco zealots.
Okay.
ANTZ or Z.
Right. And those are the things that are just really beginning to run rampant through everything that we're doing. And that was the one that caught my attention was, here we are, we're talking about an attorney general. Is somebody going to actually step up finally and maybe say, hey, gee, you're wasting our tax dollars?
Right. Tom Miller, Iowa Attorney General, literally said anybody who tells you Juul is a panic or an epidemic in America is deceiving you. That's his quote. So you got one saying that it is, one saying that it isn't. And that's sad. Right.
Wow.
It's very scary.
And don't forget, they don't really have to disclose anything. And that's the whole point. It's, again, you want to keep people away from the facts. And this is an easy sell to the public. Oh, my God, these people are going to kill us. In the meantime, the truth is we're pulling money away from their tobacco tax and their funds. And if they can't collect that, either your taxes are going to go up or they're going to have to default and go and declare bankruptcy for the state.
Yep.
And that is an absolute career killer if that happens. So what do you do to get people smoking? Vaping. It's going to lead people to smoking. So trust us. Let's get rid of that now and we'll crush before they become like big tobacco. In the meantime, they've got their pharma deals and big tobacco deals keeping them afloat. So we pose a threat to their income, and that's why they do it.
See, that one even gets me because most people they don't understand a lot of the narrative. And the three of us could sit down and we could talk about the MSA and payments and taxation. And oh my God, we could sit and discuss that probably all night. But most people just don't understand, or they are unaware of when you're talking about large payments and government, state governments going bankrupt, because we're talking just from the MSA money. And MSA is the Master Settlement Agreement that was made in between the states and the large tobacco company. The tobacco company wouldn't say, yes, we lied and found fault. Not at that point, but they said, we'll pay you X amount of dollars over forever. And the states have turned around and they are now, they took the money up front. They sold bonds to make sure that they could get their money right then and there instead of waiting for the payment. And now they've spent the money, and now smoking has been declining. So the money that they have been receiving is less than what they anticipated. And they're starting to now shift themselves.
They go one step further. The money wasn't declining really until vaping came along.
Nice.
And people suddenly started quitting smoking way beyond expectations. So what happens? They raise the tax, raise the price, bring in more income, but more people are quitting because of vaping. So it's a case of, shit, let's put a stop to this goddamn vaping stuff before we go bankrupt.
I did read there was something, and I need to write this stuff down. I did read that they had anticipated a decline in smoking of like 4 to 6% annually, and it started to jump between 11 and 20%, which is exactly what you're saying, Bill. They're sitting there going, oh my God, we're going to go broke.
And don't forget, in their estimates of a small decline, what they hadn't included was you're going to have an increase in population, which is where they kind of expect that to make up for the difference. And then they raise the prices and that will make up for it. But they've been basing it on like 20, 30 years of NRT. You've got your patches, your knit gums, everything else. And they have such a low success rate that, okay, we aren't going to lose too many smokers and we'll get more to replace them so we don't have to worry. Then vaping comes along and it's, well, shit. Not only aren't we getting all the money from pharma company pays us, tobacco companies pay us, but these guys aren't, and they're costing us, all our smokers, our income is plummeting down. Look at California, where they went like from $7 billion and they had to jump up the taxes and tax vape supplies too, because they're not meeting the required levels. And now it's like over $2 billion in tobacco tax a year. And yet they still need people smoking again. So get rid of the flavors, get rid of everything else. Say, oh, see, we are protecting your kids from all these harms. Well, first of all, there's not been one single legitimate report of harm. Every report they use has been junk science to meet what they require. Anything that does have legit value is completely ignored. And what do they do for all the hearings? Bring in the kids. And guess what? Tobacco-free kids, they have full scholarships for some of their key youth minors who recruit enough people to handle these things. They have paid summer camps, all expenses paid, to script train the kids that appear.
You and I began talking about
when they
that
have 100
the other
kids
day.
show up, we have maybe 3 shops might pop in.
Yeah. Acting class.
That's just incredible. Kevin, let me ask you a couple of questions.
Yep.
One, you've been blogging for the vaping industry, and for how long? Kind of like on a guesstimate.
2014, December of 2014 is when I did my little survey, and I really didn't expect to be a blogger, and I'll say I blog for the consumer more than the industry. I use a lot of industry stuff, but so since 2014, so about 4 years, give or take. And what was the second part?
You and I, a little bit earlier this afternoon or earlier this evening, you had said that you were just looking and gathering information and seeing things, and you ran across something that made you stop for 3 hours. What was it that made you stop and read?
David Gorlitz. I started with his blog. I found in 2008 or 9 with Christopher Snowden, I think. It's called the Gorlitz tapes, and it's pretty intense. Probably 6, 7, 8 hours worth of audio and media with David. a lot of things that I really didn't know at 45 years old. I learned quite a bit within a couple days just through David itself, and he riled me up quite a bit. He was one of them.
And now you are working with him um, in the davidgmodelcitizen.com
Yes.
audio
Yes,
blog.
yep. I emailed David. I'd already done the survey, and I emailed him. I expected no response. I didn't know who he was or what condition he was in. And he almost immediately, within a day, emailed me back, and I did a blog on him because he said nobody wants to call him. I saw some predictions that regulations were already in place. They're just going through motions to get him there, no matter what the industry would do. And it just got me madder and madder and madder by the minute. I met him in Milwaukee at the Billion Lives premiere accidentally. I was waiting on my wife to come out of the restroom, and he came around the corner. So him and I talked, and we'd been talking online, back and forth and phone calls. So we'd kind of been planning something. We weren't even sure what yet. And that's the result is David G, Model Citizen. So I'm really happy about that with him.
I'll tell you what, the work that he's doing now, and I've caught a lot of his shows already and re-listened to the ones that I hadn't been able to catch live. It's just awesome. For folks that don't know, the first time that I was able to meet Kevin, as well as David, as well as, believe it or not, Fig Ramsey out off the West Coast, down in Columbus, James Jarvis at the Vapor Station store had these guys down there. So I'm like, I took 3.5 hours. I drove down, and it was just an amazing couple of hours to be able to sit and talk and listen to all of these things that are going on. And I haven't been able to catch up with you personally again since then, even though we're both in the state of Ohio. But I was able to catch up with David Gorelitz again at the Tennessee Expo, the Vapors Carnival. And just, I turned around.
About that.
There was one, he got up to do the advocacy speech, to work on the advocacy panel. And I told him, and I'll tell people again, it's amazing to hear this gentleman, and I mean this in a polite sense, at his age, with his knowledge, get up there and call a spade a spade. And he didn't mince words, and he didn't do anything. And he stopped himself short from calling people horrendous kinds of names if they weren't going to listen. But everybody that was standing there was paying attention and listening to him. It was kind of amazing to me.
They don't know how honored they were.
I don't think half of them really knew, one, what to expect, or two, who he really was. Right.
I'm surprised he doesn't carry a ball bat.
I'll tell you what. He had just had surgery to take a blood clot out of his leg. And he wasn't even supposed to go anywhere, let alone hop on an airplane, and fly to go to an expo. And he was carrying a cane. And honest to God, if somebody would have made him angry, I wouldn't doubt for a minute he would have taken that. No, he's not that kind of guy, really. No. But he walks with authority, and people just watch. It was a great time.
It's very, very powerful. His story is more powerful, I think, than we can ever know. I don't think we'll ever get it all out of him, but I'm going to try to milk him as best I can. And
you and I were talking about that. And if you get the chance to record that into audio format, people would be able to listen to that. For quite some time to come. Yeah, that would just be an awesome thing.
It's for future consumers. They don't know any better. I didn't know any better. I had no idea. I was walking around with blinders on. I had stopped smoking on my own accidentally. So did my wife. And then something hit me on the news, and I started looking stuff up. And then with the survey, it literally was to find out what other people said, if I was wrong or right, and I was obviously pretty right. And then David was in the mix. David and quite a few other people influenced me.
Yep.
through that. So
I'm going to jump back over here to Juul. There was another
Yeah.
part that I found, and this is just an excerpt of the actual article. It said, in recent months, as a backlash against Juul has grown, the company's been emphatic that its products are not intended for teens, and Juul has taken measures to counter that reputation. But researchers and advocates say that teens who have been attracted to the device's sleek design and sweet flavors may now be addicted to nicotine. And young people who vape may be up to 7 times more likely to smoke regular cigarettes than teens. Now, both you and Bill and I and the people that are paying attention read this and understand the kind of horseshit that actually is. Because if I had the capability to wrap all this together, the CDC came out with their review and their report, and it was just in June of this year. So it's not like we're talking about something that is years old or outdated. And they said in 2017, it's the lowest actual combustible smoking rate that teens have ever been on, and
Right.
the use of e-cigarettes. Now, the one piece that I did see, it went from like 11.3 to 11.5%.
right.
But that does not, to me, classify an epidemic. So where the hell are these people getting this? Now, there's this famous name, and I don't know much about him, so I'm going to ask both of you. And I'll say it simply because what I have seen or read, this idiot by the name of Glantz. Who the hell is he?
Professor Glantz. He's some pretends he's a doctor. He's an engineer. Actually,
Mechanical engineer.
mechanical engineer. Yep, he actually is got his degree in Cincinnati, I believe, and he did the Mount Helen or Helena or something like that, Montana, I think, on secondhand smoke, which was a bullshit lie. And he became famous for anti-smoking at that point. But he only does things that will come out the way he wants it. Otherwise, he doesn't do it. I can't quote him exactly momentarily, but.
And as a mechanical engineer, what had happened on a very early study, pre-vaping, he had worked on designing a system that would be able to take the puffs from the cigarettes and so forth. And that's kind of his entry into it. But the thing is, he brings in about 20 million. I think it's every 5 years. I'd have to check the most recent ones. I think 2 just elapsed, and I think 1 more just started. I can go in and check his actual figures for the grants that come in.
That's federal funding,
that's
right?
Quite a chunk. He also doesn't do the studies. What he does is rehashes the other studies. So naturally, all he has to do is pick and choose from whatever junk science ones he wants, or whatever's assigned by pharma or any of his employers and sponsors, and he will pick those and cherry pick the data and misscrew it. Even when he was into the environmental issues, what he used to do was actually take the scientific reports, replicate the look, page by page, the content, but put in his own data. But he would actually try and simulate how the covers of those reports looked like, and the internal pages, including the color schemes. And then he would present them as, oh, see, here is a scientific fact of it. Whereas he's not using any fact. He regurgitates everything. He's, I don't know if they've been settled yet, but he's currently up for a number of plagiarizing charges and a whole bunch of other criminal activities. But when you're bringing in 20 million every few years as revenue, yeah, California really doesn't want to say, okay, we don't want you anymore. It's a case of show me the money.
Yep.
Wow.
He's been accused of sexual harassment. I'll say it. And yeah, junk science is his forte. Really, literally, that's his forte.
Junk science.
In the film documentary Merchants of Doubts, he even admitted, like, his purpose isn't to prove anything, is to distract and give the narrative that He's hired to provide. And that's what he does. And he is one of the few that is really good at what he does. He does it as an entertainer. And that's the difference between somebody who's just going in and trying to use Tobacco Playbook 101 tactics, where you know how to use the arguments against the other side. He does it in a mocking format, and that's why he will automatically mock anyone. If you challenge him on it, he'll just go, oh yeah, well, these vapors, all these stuff they're going to make up, just like Big Tobacco did for all these years that I saved the end, yada, yada, yada. In other words, as long as you can convince the public, he doesn't have to convince anyone else. He wants to convince the public, because who's the public? They're the ones who go for the politicians, and they push the politicians. Oh my God, this vaping stuff's going to kill kids. My child is in danger.
We're going to get into that kid stuff. We're going to get into that kid stuff in a minute. But Kevin, let me ask you just real quick. Have you done any kind of blogging or done any kind of, I don't know, anything that's on the web that might have spoken about glance in any way, shape, or form?
Yes.
And let me ask, what has been the general reaction to what you said?
There's no real reaction, because I'm talking to the choir. It's humorous, tongue in cheek, and funny in some points, but I don't understand the goal of tobacco control was one of them. And a few months ago, I think it was, he had just a tweet. Even non-nicotine cigarettes, e-cigarettes rather, will have kids relapsing to smoking. He wants to link that, like Bill said. He wants to make it look as if it is the man behind the curtain kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's no real reaction on the blog. Sometimes I get 100 hits, sometimes I get 1,000, but it's nobody's reading it that needs to be reading it. So
you got to remember, the public isn't going to go, oh, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. Let me go research it.
No, they're
going to go, oh, the newspaper says it's bad. Therefore, see, I have proof.
It was on Facebook. It must be true.
Yeah.
I've got a piece of paper. I printed this thing out. It was an article, I guess, by Guy Bentley. And he named it the elusive epidemic of teen vaping. Okay.
All right.
And he talks about when the CDC, now he did this in June of this year, June 12th, and he talks about the CDC and prevention released its morbidity and mortality weekly report with latest survey data. And in one paragraph right here, it says 7 years after the CDC first started collecting data on teen vaping, we should at least be seeing some signs of resurgence in teen smoking if the gateway theory are to be believed. But according to the CDC, high school smoking fell to a record low of 7.6% in 2017 compared to 8% the previous year and 15.8% in 2011. And the very next one, it says, as for vaping, following a 30% decline in vaping in 2016, current high school e-cigarette use rose from 11.3% to 11.7% in 1 year, substantially down from its high point of 16% in 2015. So again, even we get these people that are going, oh my God, tobacco-free kids, shit, whatever the hell they are. I don't even bother to pronounce them correctly. They can slaughter my name and mispronounce me and call me an ass all they want. I really don't care.
Yep.
But they're the ones that are running around going, save the kids, save the kids. If the kids are in so much damn danger, where is the CDC coming up with this? Now, later, and I know that somewhere in this, and I would have to go back and read it again, but they say maybe, and whoever the ants were that ran around saying, well, they didn't take into account the jewel, or they didn't ask a specific question.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, so they didn't say and specify I'm sorry, what toilet paper do you use? 3-ply or 2-ply? They just asked, do you use toilet paper?
Yeah.
Assholes.
No. There's
Yeah.
a couple of reasons of this jewel epidemic. One, I'm 50. When I was a kid, I stole my dad's old golds. So I had access to his old golds. And if dad's not smoking anymore today, I have access to his e-cigarette. So I'm not smoking as much. They're making every bit of this up, every single bit of it. They had 40 or so, I don't remember, something about something to do with Juul for tobacco-free kids had I think it was 40 something tweets talking about Juul. So they are the primary marketers of it. Isn't Juul. I've got no problem with Juul. Obviously, it's a good product. I've never tried it, but
Yeah, I don't have any problem with Juul. It's a cessation.
yeah.
It will stop. It will help. It will help
And-
people stop smoking.
Right. And
You know?
I listened to Fergus Mason last night. He's got a really good point. How many 12-year-old kids are going to afford a $50 rig? You know, period. This isn't happening, you know. It
It's
sounds
the
like it.
one-
It looks like it to them, but it isn't.
I took the time. A good friend of mine in my local area here was the police chief, and he's since retired. But I asked him, what happens when a minor is caught with a pack of cigarettes?
This is for Ohio,
Yeah, this is in Ohio.
right?
And he said, and I will paraphrase because I won't quote him directly because I'm not using his name, but the paraphrase was, not a damn thing. All we can do is tell their parents.
Yeah, and they're going to, right?
So it's a slap on the wrist. Oh, here, I'm telling your mommy.
Right.
There's no consequence. And I asked him, I said, okay, now if that's actually true, why not go back and go after the people that are contributing to the delinquency of a minor, which is an offense?
Right.
And he looked at me. He goes, Mike, where the hell am I going to get the manpower to do it?
Correct.
He goes, people are upset because I'm not patrolling enough. They're upset because I'm not keeping enough break-ins in people's houses and robbery and theft. Where am I going to get the people to go after something pedestrian? And I went, oh my God, you just called it pedestrian? He goes, in the grand scheme of what we have to do, it is.
It is. It absolutely is. It's crazy.
That was one of the things that set me off about the Massachusetts Attorney General. If they could
Right.
actually track this stuff, if they could actually track what Juul is doing, don't you think that they would see that, whatever this guy's name, Eric Blowhard, is buying 55 pods at a crack every 3 days?
Right. Right.
And that's the guy that they would go after, but
Or selling that many.
no
that
shit.
quick. Yeah.
In one
So-
shot.
So this is a multi-layered. Bill, I'm sure, knows about this. You've got to sign our amendment. 20%. This is a national law. So if you have funding and you have not just tobacco funding, but other drugs. Sorry about my alarm going off. When you have the sign our amendment and the FDA walks in and they're going to test you, and you got your 16-year-old trying to buy tobacco, and it's whether it's 18 or 21, I believe, 20% can fail. They only have to have 80% success to keep their funding, because you talked about funding earlier. So now they're going to 21, and that creates a whole new problem because of the e-cigarettes being tobacco. So let's pretend if you call your plumber and he comes over 10 times and he fails 20% of the time. How great a law is that? I didn't hear, and I tweeted over the Mass Attorney General idiot about the signer amendment. What are you doing about that? I've asked Truth Initiative, and they're not answering. They're never going to. I've asked Tobacco Free Kids. They're ignoring that completely. Why is that Why is that acceptable to anybody? 20% of the time, children can walk in and purchase tobacco, whether the people ID them or not. The fault isn't necessarily on the shop. They should be IDing 24 hours, 7 days a week.
Correct.
But if one slips through, it's major news.
Yeah.
You know.
Now,
And the shops I know are not letting them do it. They're IDing, period. And the FDA put out their new system to ID kids. Really? You can't do math, you know? So
this
Now,
was in a
put it this way,
conversation.
too. It's also a lot easier if they look at the kids and they're going, hell, we're ignoring the 18 age restriction as it is now. Suddenly it goes up to age 21. Oh my God, I better start obeying the law. No,
right.
they're laughing. What are you going to do? Nothing. We're going to penalize that shop over there.
Yes.
Well, we don't get it from that shop because they check ages. So, oh, gee, I'm scared. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And so they don't go after the ones supplying them, because then you got to start tracking down all these little peons. And I have to say one thing about Juul. I don't really care for it. Business wise, they're smart, but don't think that they don't know that the kids are getting their hands on it. They damn well know. I mean, it's plain smart business. And as a matter of fact, they make more with their $30 million investment of, we're putting $30 million towards an education thing. Well, if you look at the recent reports, they're shooting towards being a $15 to $16 billion company. So 30 million is very cheap cost to get international advertisement and promotion for their products.
Absolutely.
So they're laughing there. Now, why is there suddenly an urge to go after them? Well, think of the cigarette companies. They're trying to bring in their heat not burn and these other programs or other products, and they're also expanding their combustible products. So when they say, oh, we want people to switch to away from combustible smoking, bullshit. They are expanding their combustible product line. But here you have Juul come in, and suddenly you've got 48%, 52%, 57%, 64%, 68% of the market, and growing fast. And it's a case of, holy shit, we need our cutback in there. How do you get rid of the competition? You run them out of business. You try and drive them out. How do you do that? Get the public against them. Get the legislation against them. Put the rules on them. Not only that, but those rules automatically then get applied to, and your e-liquid vaping products, they're all the same thing. They're all part of this thing after getting all your kids. And with our friggin' fucking labels because of the assholes out there, it's hard for us to argue, even though we had no legal authority to stop them. And that's the thing. All we could do was report them to the IP owners, but we had absolutely no legal authority to say, hey, stop doing this.
No.
So we couldn't even argue against them.
No. And Juul, David's already said, Mr. Gorlick's already said they're going to be bought out. So I'm not sure how they're playing this.
Juul right now, with the way they're growing, especially they're expanding internationally. They're now going into the UK. They're looking at Europe. They're looking at South Africa right now. India, they're having problems with because of vaping and smoking regulations, but they are expanding everywhere. And once they do that, they're looking at a good 9-figure buyout from tobacco if needed. And why would tobacco pay that much? Like pay that many billion?
Because it can.
Well, guess what? If you've got something that already has like 68% of the market, shit.
Yeah, of course. That's a beautiful business.
There's just so much in that it blows my mind when I sit and I think about this. And again, yesterday, I dropped off the deep end about it. And when it comes to Juul, and everybody's saying that there's this Juuling epidemic, and the CDC has the paperwork, why? And you both have said it is because it is not in anybody's bottom line interest to turn around and say, but by the way, the CDC has said that's not true.
It's all they have left, Mike. It's literally what they've got left. They've got no nicotine addiction. They can't prove it. They've got no gateway. They can't prove it. And the nicotine definition is tobacco. And they've already, I don't even know where it was, PubMed or somebody already put out that it's not by definition. There's more other things in tobacco that are not tobacco. So ammonia, all that stuff. They're lining up a pod type system, closed systems, to go right along with Blue or Vonner or whatever that is now. So
And there
It's
have
all
been
going.
nicotine studies too, and they've shown that there is a very mild addictiveness possibility for some people with nicotine,
right,
but it's not consistent enough for it to be addictive enough on their own. And one thing that David can probably confirm is that back in the 50s, tobacco companies had actually found that shit, our cigarettes aren't keeping our new market, in other words, the kids back then,
Yep.
addicted enough. And that's when they brought in the scientists and the chemists, and they used all the boosters to ramp up the addiction level.
right.
And that's why you have the heaviness, bring it into the lungs really fast, make it super potent. And it's those additives that are making it enhanced addictive.
Yes, sir.
As
Yes,
a
sir.
matter of fact, last year, I think it was between February and March of last year, the UK did a little study on following up on people, the teens and youth who had started late in their teens, started vaping to see how they were doing. And they found that usually around age 22 to 24, most of them really didn't even bother vaping anymore. They'd lost interest. It wasn't really the social thing to do every single day with all your buddies around type thing.
Yeah.
They might pop out a cigarette or a vape or an e-cig or a vape when they're out for a beer with their buddies once in a while, but they weren't daily vapors anymore, mainly because they'd lost interest.
Yep. No, Bill, when did you start smoking? What age were you?
And myself,
Yes, sir.
let's see, I can't remember back. I was a smoker for about 37 years, so I was probably about somewhere between 16 and 18.
Okay, you're a little older, Mike. What were you?
I smoked usually the harshest, strongest, heaviest tar, heaviest nick cigarettes I could find. I was about 1.5 to 2 packs a day. Back when I started, they were like 25 per a pack, sort of thing.
Yep.
And for quitting, I tried quitting for about 15, 20 years, and I basically gave up. I went through the gums, the nick patches. I went through the lozenges. I went through the Champex, a number of other prescriptions. I went through 2 sessions of laser therapy, through acupuncture, tried cold turkey.
Good
Nothing
God,
worked.
dude.
When I went for my vape, I looked online, and I almost didn't start vaping because Health Canada kept saying it's illegal, it's illegal. Until I started checking into it, I'm going, it doesn't make sense. Checked into it, I found out, no, you can get them. And so I got one, and I decided which one I wanted and got it. And I had my 2 open packs of smokes with me when I went to get it. I had no intention of quitting smoking. I had no interest in it. I'd long given up on that possibility.
Yep.
All I wanted to do was, I figured if I could convince my mind every 5th cigarette that I could replace with a vape, maybe that would help me cut down on some of the cost. What I hadn't counted on was I was one of the lucky ones. From my very first vape, my very first puff, I have not had a cigarette.
Yeah.
And that was almost 5 years ago.
Wow.
So I was one of the ones that, like, I had no intention of quitting, but instantly it was a case of, oh shit, okay, let's go for it.
Crazy.
I still have the open pack of cigarettes in my desk drawer too, and I can pull them out. I can roll the cigarette around in my hand. I can sniff it under my nose. No interest.
Doesn't bother you, yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
I was 24 hours under 48. It was under 48. Janice and I both quit. Mike, how old were you?
Now I'm one of the odder ones. I didn't start until after I got out of high school. I was 19.
Okay, so that's less likely, much less.
And I stopped. I was a dual user. I started using vape. I was a dual user for a little while, and I started vaping 5.5, 6 years ago. Started out with the little penguin pen that would never satisfy much of anybody, but I was trying, and finally was able to quit and just go to vape. But it's a lot of people just don't realize you get the right setup, and I've heard Demetrius talk about it. I've heard Bill talk. It's so many people. You get the right setup at the right nicotine. You take the time that somebody at the shop would educate you, and it makes it easy to quit.
Which is something else the FDA doesn't want to do.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to take a minute. I want to ask both of you something.
Okay.
this popped up, and this is a sore subject, but it goes hand in hand with Juul.
Okay.
It was brought up by Kara Tibbetts when she was on a few weeks ago. And she turned around and she said her concern with the Juul, she doesn't mind them. They have their place in helping people stop combustible tobacco. But her concern was that from time to time, she would see somebody run out of a pod, and because they are at such a high salt nicotine level, 50 milligram, 0, 3, or 6, maybe even 12 milligram in a standard 60-40 or 70-30 PG is not going to satisfy them. They went and grabbed a pack of cigarettes. And that bothered her immensely.
I believe that. I don't know enough to talk fluently about the Nick salt. I know taste, strength, and backup. What you said earlier is hugely important. I think the big mods are dangerous for people that are new. So I like the Juul for that reason, or something like it. I don't care about if it's Juul or not, but I can't speak fluently about the necessity to do that. I don't like it, but if that's somebody's choice, they can do that. Bill, what do you think?
Personally, I don't really care for the Juul. I have nothing against it, though. Yes, there is a market for it. As a matter of fact, I would love to see, and probably a bit controversial way of putting it, but I would love to see the Juul and even the big tobacco, heat not burns, in every single convenience store, gas station, any of those variety stores whatsoever. I would love to see those products in every single one of them. Yes. They should not be in an e-liquid vape shop, because those stores, the reason I say put them in the convenience stores and so forth is you don't really need the instructions for them. In other words, it's a case of buy, pop it in, go. Whereas with our vape products, you want to teach the safety, you want to make sure that they're matched, you have different components that can go with different items. There's a lot to know. And that's why it should be, our products should not be allowed to be sold in any of those kind of shops, because they do require experience and education.
Good point.
But for the actual, I don't know. Yeah, I can see people are going to smoke. And right now there's also the big thing of, see, Juul is really trying to be good. They're going to lower their nicotine, which is kind of bullshit marketing. Because what you have to understand is, why are they doing it? Because they're looking for the UK market.
They want to get into
and in the UK, you have to be under a certain level. So it's not a case of, we're doing this out of the goodness of our heart. Same as the $30 million for education. We're doing that out of the goodness of our heart. Bullshit. You're getting international press coverage daily. The more lawsuits you can get, the more people you can get discussing it. The kids are going to be going, ooh, this Juul thing, we aren't supposed to have it. Yep. Let's get one.
Exactly.
And that is like some of their biggest markets. So they know damn well that, the kids are getting their hands on it. It doesn't have to be the kids buying it. It can be the guy who runs the back alley or whoever else. Yep. But they'll buy it, so they've done it legally. We don't have to market it. And they do have one of the nicest, most adult packaged devices.
It's simple.
But don't think that they don't know. As much as I personally don't really care much for Juul myself, and even though I'd love to see them in all those shops, you have to give them credit in one specific area. Their marketing department is fucking brilliant. They know what they're doing. They are marketing Juul the way we should have been marketing our liquid vapor products 5 years ago, all the way up to now. In other words, they're doing things right, and that's why they're getting out there.
Of course.
Wholeheartedly true. All right, gentlemen, I'm going to take just a couple of minutes. I'm going to run our sponsors material.
Okay.
That way we don't run afoul of our sponsors. No, but our sponsors are really great for everything that they are doing, all the things that they are helping out in. So I'm going to take just a moment, and we're going to check out our sponsors, and then the folks will be right back. And this evening is Mr. Bill Tarling, who is over in Vancouver, Canada. and also Kevin Crowley, who is right here in Ohio, and we'll be right back in just a minute.
Hey now, this is Dimitri with Smoke Free Radio reminding you to please show some love to our wonderful sponsors. Without them, there would be no Smoke Free Radio, and they are as follows. All the way from Florida, Moon Mountain Vapor, with locations in Florida, and their liquid available for wholesale and retail, moonmountainvapor.com. Some of the best custards and tobaccos on the market from the Brickwills Vaping Company. The lovely Shell with a vapor bar, locations in Texas, Virginia, and West Virginia. And of course online at thevaporbar.com. And who says you can't have award-winning e-liquid without cartoon characters? That's exactly what you're going to get at theplumeroom.com. And finally, of course, the Vaping Advocate magazine that has generously provided the telephone lines for you to communicate with us. Thank you for your support. And finally, for you, the listener, don't forget to check out the coupons and codes page on Smoke Free Radio. Pick up some e-liquid and save some money. From all of us here at Smoke Free Radio, thank you for your continued support.
That's Mr. Dimitris. And he's got an awesome kind of thing when he sits there and he does all of our material for that. Gentlemen, I want to take a few minutes. Bill, if you need, I'll shoot you these photos. I ran across, and I believe
You're
that
not gonna
this
send me the naked
was
photos of you again, are you? I mean, I'm still trying to recover.
I'm looking for pizza. I thought we were getting pizza.
Well, I thought you were holding a little mini pizza in front of you.
No, I got a tennis racket in front of me. Damn it! That's what Dimitri tells me. I cropped these out from the website that was the one that you sent me is just not harmless water vapor.
Yeah,
and the first one is it's saying, is this a sneaky thing, or is this something different? And I don't know. I'm hoping that people can read this, because it says part of this, the very opening one, they're saying these devices go by names including e-cigarettes, smokeless cigarettes, vaporizers, vape pens, mods, tanks, cigalikes, Juul e-hookah, and hookah pens. Right off the bat that they're not even taking the time. Now, this, folks, if you're listening or you're watching, these are talking points against vaping that they're going through in Colorado. And this was one of their biggest things that they put up. And right off the bat, they're saying mods, tanks. No, now you're describing a part of something. You're not even really turning around and saying anything about. But
they don't have anything.
Yeah, that's no lie. As it goes along, they turn around and vape use is on the rise, especially with teens and young adults. Here we go again.
Can I throw a quick little comment on that?
Absolutely.
Something that a lot of people don't really understand. Why do they keep saying it's an epidemic, and how are they getting these giant figures of 900 times? What you have to understand is, let's go back, let's say even around 2011, or we can go back earlier, but let's say you had one or two teens who may have had it, or adults even. who had it because it wasn't really readily available. It was fairly new to the market. You didn't have shops to it. You didn't have online stores making their living by it. You kind of had to order it in and trial and error, and half the stuff was crap. So it was just beginning. So you're only going to have a couple of people using it. Shift forward a couple of years later, and a few people start catching on, and a few shops start opening. Well, now suddenly your 2 or 3 people might be 40 or 50 per 100 or whatever, because now, okay, there are a few more places to get it. Then it becomes, hey, this stuff works. Word gets around, more shops start opening. So it becomes more and more readily available right off the market. Well, that's how you get your numbers. If suddenly you had think of Ford when they first brought out their Model T, the whole world didn't own it. A couple of people had, and it was kind of like, oh, okay, they weren't really widely available. Once cars grew and became accepted and were available, well, yeah, those numbers skyrocketed. If you want to take cars versus when they first started, okay, we started with 2 this year, and now we have, let's say, 50 million this year. Wow, look at that epidemic increase.
It's addictive.
That's how they get those numbers.
Driving is addictive.
When you go from like 2 to, let's say, 900 users, that is a big jump. And so exponentially with the population, as more and more people are using it, and now we're in the millions and millions of people using it, well, of course those numbers are going to grow. And that's why if you use a percentage based on, when it first came out and you really couldn't find it anywhere because they weren't readily available, you might have 1 or 2 companies trying to market one little thing, to now we have a whole bunch of companies marketing it. Yeah, your number's going to grow. But in the public side, they can say, epidemic, it has increased 900% in the past couple of years. And people go, oh my God, every single kid's going to be vaping. They're going to get addicted. And that's how they use the data manipulation for those figures. You
just explained who Professor Glantz is to Mike.
Yep.
That's exactly what it is.
Wow.
The statistics thing, I don't know who it was, but there's I don't know if it's Nick Nolte, Nicolas Cage, and drowning, I think is what it is. the amount of drowning and the number of Nicolas Cage movies are almost perfect. So there's manipulation in everything. There's an article about it that shows that. I think it was Dick Puddlecoat that put that out. But yeah, Glantz does exactly that.
It's sort of like the old saying, 60% of the time, I'm 100% right.
Yes. Yeah. And you are.
Yeah. Further along in this thing, it says vape use is on the rise, especially with teens and young adults. Now, here again, we know that is not true because the CDC just came out with their report that does not agree with that.
It's got nothing to do with truth.
And that's what
our industry has to get through its head. This has nothing to do with an intention or an appearance of even remotely being true.
No.
What it is Tobacco Playbook 101. And David can probably really explain this well because it's been documented. The whole thing is, regardless of your industry, let's say your industry is widgets and they have nothing to do with kids, but you say kids are going to get a hold of these widgets. That is your selling point to the public. Because if you try and disagree with anything that they say, then they turn around and say, see, you must hate kids. You don't care if they get widgets in their hand. You're a bad person.
Yep.
And that's how they use it. The kid doesn't even have to be anything to do with the industry. But as long as you put that in the sentence, the public will automatically assume, oh, okay, these things must be bad because they're going to do something with kids.
I'll give you an example. Pelican Water Systems. I don't know who they are and I don't care. They put one of those ads on Facebook about 2 weeks ago, and I'm physically reading it. Refilling a disposable water bottle may seem safe, but it's actually harmful to your health. Get the facts on how to protect yourself. Now, wait a minute. You're a water system company telling me that refilling my water bottle is dangerous. Duh, you dumbass. I just thought that was so funny and ironic that I would have never, ever even noticed that 5 years ago. So, yeah, they're made up numbers. They're bullshit numbers.
They are. And the more that I read through this thing, and the more that I'm looking at this, and I'm saying, okay, at one point in here it said, while smoking rates remain largely unchanged in Colorado. Yeah. Now, here again, they're just saying Colorado.
And
Between
you know how they
2000
get that to be actually technically accurate is because if you remember, vaping is now classified as tobacco product and
Yes.
is often categorized as smoking.
Yes.
You nailed it.
And
Therefore, as your cigarette smoking goes down and vaping goes up, see, our numbers haven't changed. Because
Overall
now we have to add them
tobacco-
both together.
Overall tobacco use. That's correct. And that's
Unless we're promoting our things like plain packages and age things, then we don't count the vaping. It's look at this decline we've caused.
see, and that's what a lot of people won't know or they don't pay attention to, is because vaping got reclassified as a tobacco product. You're 100% right. Well, now it goes into a different category.
Yes.
But this one got me. It said that between 2012 and 2015. Well,
because
why
it sounds good.
why the hell did they stop at 2015?
Because the numbers started
Declining?
changing in a way that they didn't want.
Yeah.
Same as when you hear the poison control calls. There's a reason why they usually stop at between February and April of 2014. That's when the call numbers suddenly had been going up, 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 and then they just absolutely plummeted way down to almost negligible. And what they weren't telling people is, by the way, those poison control calls, they weren't for I've been poisoned. It's been they're inquiry calls. For instance, one of the reports, and I've got the logs from it, and they're hysterical to read, but they'll make you cry at the same time when you realize how much the bullshit has been pulled over the people.
Yep.
It's like one of the calls was, I was at a big gathering, and about 3 or 4 rows down below me at the opposite end of the bench and everything, I saw a person with one of those e-cig things in his pocket. And I felt ill later on that night because it was so hot and everything. And I felt ill. So did that e-pen down way across like 100 feet from me poison me? And these were the type of things being called in.
Yeah.
Or it was a case of, oh my God, I walk outside and somebody just blown an e-cigarette. Did all those fumes poison me? It wasn't calls of, I've swallowed this or anything like that. It was just, am I poisoned? Yet what way they portray it is, oh, well, we had thousands and thousands and thousands of calls going into poison control about people who were poisoned by this. No, there were inquiries.
Jake,
But that's why they stop at February to April of 2014, because it went from thousands
to
to barely even breaking hundreds.
Wow.
Jake Jacobson on Twitter has that literally every month, and I love Jake. The highest thing, it surprised me. I actually was telling my wife, because she usually doesn't care about this stuff, that hand sanitizer is the highest calls. That's what the problem is. Nobody ever in my life have I ever seen on the news that they're going to ban hand sanitizer. So I don't know what.
Toothpaste has more poisonings.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's manipulation.
It is pure and simple. Further down on this same slide that I've got up, vape aerosol isn't harmless. Now, for the people
Almost.
that don't know, they have found statistically that if you have to call it secondhand vape, if you have to really label it that,
Yeah.
it's so clean that it's not even funny. But this thing, and again, this is what they're passing around in Colorado in order to pass their flavor bans
And
or
in
whatever the hell their
schools.
agenda is. They're saying despite the claims, those big puffy vape clouds aren't just water vapor. The studies have shown that the aerosol vapor can contain dangerous toxins, including heavy metals and chemicals known to cause cancer.
But they don't tell you how much less. Imagine that.
And as a matter of fact, a lot of those studies we already know have been debunked as junk studies, like where they were actually literally burning the equipment because they didn't use juice in it, or they let it like go into dry head and okay, now we'll measure it. So most of those reports they're using have been debunked, and they can keep reusing it. You got to remember one thing: we want to put out a claim, we have to prove it. They want to put out a claim, we have to prove beyond a shadow of doubt that there's no possibility of any of their stuff being even reported.
Right.
And simply saying your methodology was was completely inappropriate is not enough. You have to do it globally.
They're too powerful to argue with, almost.
Yeah. And that's why I was saying, like, even you look at all these campaigns, anti-vaping campaigns being put forward by the government, by Campaign for Killing Kids, and by Minnesota and all these other places. I still say somebody might check into the Advertising Council, because to put out a campaign, media campaign, you have to be able to prove your claims. And if they're saying this is causing cancer, hey, you have to prove it. And they can be charged, or at least have the stuff pulled. Now, for us, we can't put out those kind of stuff because we can't prove globally without without any doubt whatsoever. Has to be absolutely zero harm. So we can't make any of those claims, which is why we can't do the promotions. They don't have to make that claim. They can say anything they want, and since nobody's challenging them on advertising, hey, then it must be right because they were allowed to put it out.
Yeah, and that's just an absolute crock. A crock of shit.
FTC for Federal Trade Commission for advertising tobacco has been illegal forever, but every time ABC or the other alphabet soups put out something, Tobacco Free Kids is the first one to put it out, who are supposed to be educating kids with a big picture of packs of cigarettes across the back of the convenience store. And I've called them on it, and it doesn't matter. And the research bill you were talking, there in the United States, there's a federal law that says you can't put out fake stuff, but if it's in the norm of society for them, which if you and I agree that it's normal, then it's okay. So there is no ability to nab them by their balls. They've covered themselves.
But what you can do is put the pressure on the politicians. By the way, they're releasing all these claims. And here's where we're making a mistake. When we go to hearings, we got a vapor going up. It is 95%, at least 95% safer. A lot of times people forget to put in the at least, which is critical. There is less than a 5% danger compared to tobacco. It is 95%. So we're doing the same thing. In other words, we're just repeating the same lines, but we aren't really going in saying, oh, by the way, this information that you've gotten from these guys about the contents, that's not quite accurate. Those reports debunked. Here was the problem with it. Here are the true facts. As a matter of fact, in California, if you remember the report last year, they tested the air quality in heavy cloud-filled vape shops.
Yep.
And they came, it's negligible findings. Well, naturally, that kind of gets buried. Yeah. But the ants, any of these reports, anything you put in kids, it'll get attention. You put in, even though it's been proven this is wrong and fake about the heavy metals and causing cancer, they will recycle it. It used to be every 3 to 4 months. They're now currently on a schedule every 6 to 8 weeks. They will recycle a new danger issue or recycle an old danger issue every
new time. Right, a new time. Yeah. And if you're walking into a court, and anybody's listening, if you're walking into court, challenge, like you just said, you have to challenge their claim. They can't prove things. They're just saying things. This is idiotic. It's way beyond idiotic.
So if you watch Merchants of Doubt, that's actually how Glantz operates. He goes, I don't have to prove anything.
Right.
I can say anything I want. And if somebody can prove wrong, all I do is distract onto a different train of thought. So I don't have to prove a single thing. I can make up anything I want. And that is how Glantz works.
He always has.
That gets me.
And it's all back to funding because, like you said, the $20 million, I think that's GlaxoSmithKline. I can't remember now. Johnson & Johnson, GlaxoSmithKline, whichever. That is about to expire, so.
Yeah, and Johnson & Johnson, don't forget, they put $8 million into Campaign for Killing Kids. Matter of fact, they were one of the big sponsors. I think they're in the $1 million range early on. But to give you an idea, Campaign for Kids, people are saying, just go against them. Well, they have two divisions of Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. They have the main group, which is Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. Their net assets as of 2015 was $42 million net assets. For their second division, their Tobacco-Free Kids Action Fund, that had 2015 net assets of $38 million. So you add that together, and basically we're going against, and actually, was that 8? Yeah. You're looking at like an $80 million company that we're fighting with, and we can't even get $100 from shops.
You just said it. They're a company. They're a business.
Yeah, they're
Absolutely
big business. Then
And
one of the
Amelia-
next slides in this thing, a doctor.
Do you know what the revenue from grants was in 2015? This is just from grants for Campaign for Killing Kids. $35,775,466.
Wow.
You're kidding.
That's just from grants for 2015.
Wow.
See, these are the things that people don't know. That they're not informed. They don't tell. Like
That
you
was
said
also just
earlier.
the main
Oh my
one
God, the news said
for
it.
their
It must
Action
be
Fund
true.
one, they got a $29 million grant.
That's bullshit.
Now people wonder, why are they so against us? We are getting people who we know that vaping works for quitting smoking, but we don't promote it as that. But although we aren't a medical cessation device, vaping has one side effect which nothing else does. It creates a hell of a lot of ex-smokers.
Yeah.
And that is bad for business, because if smokers go, then where do Campaign for Your Tobacco-Free Kids go saying, oh, we need more money to keep fighting this? Why?
Yeah, fighting
It's
what?
It's disappearing.
It's already done.
You don't need any more money.
It's already over.
There's this piece that I put up on the screen right now. And again, this is from the talking points about anti-vaping in Colorado. It's this, I don't know who this guy is, a doctor, fine. I'm not sure that I would ever go to visit him based on what he said. It says doctors aren't so sure about vaping either. As Denver Health Hospital family medical medicine doctor, and there's his name, we know it's addictive, we know it's expensive, and we know the manufacturers are making a whole lot of money selling it.
So he's unqualified, obviously. Right off the top.
I want to know, as an e-liquid manufacturer, where the hell is my money? If everybody's making so much damn money, how come I'm not rolling in it?
That's right.
Because they're not being paid by pharma. You got to remember, especially in the U.S., a lot of the doctors are sponsored by pharma.
Yeah, they are. It's just
You market their products, whether that person has that illness or not. You market those products.
yeah, it cracked me up. And we know the manufacturers are making a lot of money selling it. Bullshit.
So, Mike, there's a meme that I've had some shit for that shows an inhaler like Nicotret, whatever it is, Nicotrol, and e-liquid, and it was pointed out that nicotine is optional, but you got water, you got your nicotine, you got whatever, and then you got the Nicotrol or whatever it is. The inhaler has all kinds of shit in it, but they don't know enough about vaping, but they sure can prescribe, like Bill just said, pharma. You can do the gums, patches, inhalers, hypnotism, whatever you like. So
As a matter of fact, now the pharma companies are marketing the gums and patches together as a kit to be used simultaneously.
good.
Here's
Good.
something I still haven't been able to get anyone in the States to check. I know it is in Canada, but in Canada, the Nick gum and the patch and everything are, with all the bright colored fruit stuff on the packaging, is right on the open shelves, right at toddler level.
Yep.
As a matter of fact, in Canada, an 8-year-old can go in and buy Nick gum without any parents' permission or
Are you
consent
fucking
or anything
kidding me?
else. Yep.
Yeah.
Now, what I'd like people to start doing in their state is start checking into what are the restrictions for buying there, because if some of the states also have no restriction on it, which most people don't realize, well, put it this way, if it's available open shelf, there's a reason why medicine is kept behind pharmacy counter
That's correct.
if it's dangerous.
And addictive.
And therefore, if it's on available open shelf, there's a good chance they can just put it in with anything else being bought, sort of thing, and buy it.
It's over the counter. Yeah.
So it might be worthwhile checking
I will look for
in
you.
each state. What is the age restriction? Because in Canada, there is none.
I don't think there is a restriction in the states specifically, and I won't quote him verbatim, but Aaron Biebert said you don't see nicotine addicts going to CVS or wherever to break in and steal all the nicotine gum. So
And it's at toddler friggin' level.
yeah. Oh yeah.
It's not on a high shelf. It's not on the top. It's
Next to the
placed
candy.
right at hand, quick, almost like spontaneous or instinct, or just, oh, here, let me try this.
Yeah, looks like candy.
Mm-hmm.
Fig Ramsey.
Oh, they got all the candy and bright pictures on it, and
Yeah.
new fantastic flavor.
I've seen photos. I don't know where they're from though. I've seen so many where they're next to candy or next to whatever, and they're low, but I didn't know where it was. I will look. I hate CVS, but I'll go in and check next time.
Yeah, I'll probably walk into one down around here. Fig
I'll
Ramsey
ask.
brought up a point talking about the nicotine gum.
Yep.
And he said, okay, the vaping industry has nicotine. We've been labeled as tobacco just
Correct.
because of the nicotine. But that product, that nicotine gum, is not labeled as tobacco. That's one. And
Correct.
two, our e-liquid has to carry on its labels, 30% of our label has to have this warning that everybody loves. It says, warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive substance.
To perpetuate the lie.
But that gum doesn't have to have the same thing.
The FDA themselves said that they don't have potential for addiction.
And don't forget, difference too is that they had passed medical, and which is why they're under the different category for medical. Which, if we had to go under, then we'd be jumping through so many hoops you wouldn't get through. But what people don't realize is, for the big pharma, since they submit so many products and so much going out, all they have to do to pass medical is pretty much just hand in 2 positive reports of something as a positive benefit. You can ignore the 98 other reports that say there's a really good chance this will kill the person or give them 3 testicles. You can ignore that as long as you have 2 that can say, oh, this would probably benefit. Then they can pass. But again, they have the money going through there, and they have so many applications going through that. It's a case of, okay, we'll accept whatever you send us. Just send us the 2 good ones. Whereas we can't do that because, first of all, we aren't a medical product.
Yeah.
And if you check, not with the nic salts, but with the regular nicotine, our nic levels are actually lower than the nic gums overall, if you take it per dosage level.
Yeah.
And so when you take it per dosage, we are actually a lot less than them.
Yeah.
Nic salts would be higher.
And Patrick in chat said gum is age restricted state by state, and they did that on their show a couple years ago. And
Okay, so it is in the U.S.?
in some states, yep. In Texas, it's 12 for the age, but they are locked up. So I'll check. I'm in Ohio. I'll check next time I go. But yeah,
And check also if you ever see a convenience store or one of these Quickie Mart type things, and you see any NRTs on the shelves anywhere in the open area for open access, grab a picture.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I'm going to continue moving along because we've only got about half an hour left. I threw a picture up on the Facebook live chat. For the people that are listening, this is a picture that is split in half. On the left-hand side is a product by Fig Ramsey out on the West Coast. It's called Advocotton, and it is the cotton that people put into what's called an RDA to be able to vape. It's saturated with the e-liquid and creates the vapor. On the right-hand side is the nicotine gum. Now, on the left, this Advocotton, because it's used in the vaping industry, it must have, again, a 30% warning on its label that says it has nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive substance or chemical.
Yep.
And it does not, N-O-T, huge effing letters, not have any nicotine in it at all. So the government is saying you have to lie. Hands down, you have to lie.
Yes.
And put this warning on there.
Yep.
And this package on the right doesn't have a damn thing saying the same thing.
Correct.
When are people going to wake up and see this ignorant double standard? That just irritates the hell out of me.
And again, I'm not in the industry, so you guys can, flame me all you like. Until it's in a court of law, and the right to be smoke free, I think is what it is. That suit says it's not tobacco, but that suit's still pending, of course. I wish I was in the courtroom every time. But until they do this, it's going to stay that way because Tobacco Free Kids started it, and everybody else is jumping on the bandwagon.
It's an easy sell for votes and for public approval.
Yeah, it's simple. This is easy. You're right.
This was the most simplistic thing that I could think of, and Fig was the one that brought it up, and I carried it the next step forward.
On
the left,
tobacco.
Yeah,
Lighters
on the left,
tobacco.
the government is saying that you have to lie, and here you go. Here's your lie. And on the right, we have a product that it effing says, this product contains nicotine. It's clearly on the damn label. Yep. But they don't have to have the same thing. Even though I would almost bet that it has the same damn nicotine type in it.
Right.
It'll also be concentrated.
Palaxis. There's some, I can't remember what it's called now.
If you look at the heat not burn products, look at the list on there, and we got rid of all these chemicals. Well, they may have lowered some, but if you notice something in them, every single item that was the chemical booster for the nicotine is in the heat not burns. As a matter of fact, PMI and Benson Hedges in hearings, both in Canada and in the US, have gone and said, like in Canada, they're asked, are you afraid of losing your smokers? You go, no, we're using the same nicotine that we're using in our cigarettes. So we know the addiction levels are, so we aren't worried about that.
Right.
In the States, they said the same thing. It was basically, no, we don't have to worry about it. What they know is that whether somebody uses heat not burn or cigarettes or both, because, hey, if it really matches close to the cigarette, well, if they don't have one, they'll buy the other. And so they know that they've got the market, whether somebody is smoking or whether they want to use a heat not burn, thinking that they're quitting or using something safer. They know that, hey, we've got all the markets there. And that's also why a lot of the Juul things are coming up now in lawsuits, because, these guys are getting ahead of us.
Yep.
In Japan, PMI took over 40% of the Japanese market, and Japan relies on about 32 to 40% of their income from their own tobacco. As a matter of fact, Japan has now had to go to market elsewhere, to Malaysia and a number of other countries now, because they were trying to play catch up because they were too slow.
Yep.
So it's a case of the tobacco companies bring in money.
Yeah,
look at Zimbabwe. They are having huge celebrations because they've had their best tobacco revenue to date.
Yep.
Because there's so much demand, because other places are now having to compete in their own areas.
Yep. I'm going to step forward a little bit more here. The last couple of slides on this talking points in the Colorado thing are what they're saying, myth versus fact. And they said a myth that vaping is a healthy alternative to cigarettes. And they said fact, vape e-juice may contain nicotine, chemicals known to cause cancer, and is known to cause health problems, including wheezing, coughing, sinus infections, nosebleeds, shortness of breath, and asthma.
Conjecture.
They don't have any proof of one single item of those.
It's conjecture.
What a bunch of bullshit.
Healthy alternative rather than, as we say, healthier.
And it says may contain.
Yeah, may contain
may,
nicotine. Okay, it might contain nicotine, but it's going to be clearly labeled.
Politician may contain brain cells.
Yeah.
Not likely, though.
The next one, vaping isn't a gateway to regular cigarettes. That's what they're saying is a myth. And their fact, it says, young people who took up vaping were more than 4 times likely to smoke traditional cigarettes a year later, according to one study.
And if you checked how many vapors they even used in the study, or how many kids they even used in the study, the figure for the vaping portion was actually exceptionally low. And not only that, but again, they considered, oh, he took one puff. Therefore, he is now a daily vapor equivalent. In other words, a vapor.
One
They put a number on that one either. On the fact they usually put a number for that study, they didn't put one. That's funny.
My one thing I always use to dissuade the gateway effect. This banana cream pie vape tastes so delicious and satisfying that now suddenly I have a weird urge to lick a dirty ashtray. And that's what it's like when you're trying to say, oh, this will get you going smoking. Well, yeah, I want to go from something that tastes great to, ugh.
Yeah.
Now, when it wasn't vaping, we didn't have this tastes great to begin with. So we just went right to the, and got used to it and figured, oh, okay, now smoking tastes great.
Yep.
We didn't have anything to compare it to in use.
That's what happened. Yeah.
The last part of their myth, it turns around and says it's just harmless water vapor. And their fact, this one made me boil. It's not harmless, and it's not just water vapor. It may contain toxins, potentially cancerous agents, and dangerous chemicals like diacetyl, which is known to cause a fatal lung disease called popcorn lung. Yeah. Here we go again.
Now, what's funny with the popcorn lung, who first brought that to everyone's attention? Dr. Murphy said, you might want to find something better for this because this brought a wood diacetyl or contains what's diacetyl. Okay. And then he explained, well, that's sort of like with the popcorn lung from those 8 people in the popcorn factory who would work there for all these ages, breathing it in nonstop, the powder. And so the popcorn lung was actually the explanation with one of the effects of diacetyl if used too much. And so that's when the industry said, okay, a lot of us, we either let people know, we check our concentration levels, make sure they're at least below a certain level. And for a lot of the companies, they found alternatives. But all the ants looked at was popcorn lung. Oh, people think that you're swallowing popcorn with this, and that's more like candy again. So, yeah, this stuff will cause popcorn lung. There's 200 times more diacetyl in a cigarette, and there's yet to ever be one case of popcorn lung from smoking.
I know. And I've got a bunch of people running
in the
around
factory who worked in the factory with that powder, bring that in for months and months and months.
I keep getting people running around asking me, well, aren't you going to get popcorn lung? Aren't you going to get... And I stop and I ask them, okay, first I'm going to ask you a question.
Only if I go to the movies.
And then I'm going to... I'll ask you a question, then I'll answer you. What is popcorn lung? Now, 9.95 out of 10 people go, well, I don't know, I read it somewhere. Really, folks? If you're going to be running around and you're going to be telling me that I'm doing something that is so effing detrimental to my health, at least have the common courtesy to understand what the hell you're talking about.
I'd like to ask a question. Why hasn't tobacco control from Tobacco Free Kids on out to heart, lung cancer, body parts, people, thank you, David, ever said when I was a smoker that I could get popcorn lung? That's what I want to know. Why aren't they telling me that?
Yeah. When it's been how many years? All right.
Did you say I was too close to the microwave?
Yeah. You inhaled the vapor from the microwave, and now you have bullshit.
And Patrick brought up a quick thing too. Chantix's been proven to cause some users to commit suicide, but the FDA gave them a buy on the black box warning, which is exactly true. The pharma companies won their lawsuits; they no longer had to put that. But I think I sent it to you one time. You might have it in your files for one of the shows. I sent you out of a 1 minute, 20-second long Chantix commercial. Over 1 minute of it was health warnings.
Yes.
And dangers and side effects. And what's funny is they're going, and may cause premature whatever and loss and might kill you. And meantime, they have in the music, background music, la da 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 da.
Yeah, they want to gloss
happy.
over the shit.
But it was over 1 minute of of a minute 20 commercial was the side effects and health warnings. We need to be able to put up warning. Vaping might cause you to
not smoke.
I want to smoke.
Yeah, no shit.
That's what it did to me.
That's
all it's done.
I'm going to switch over for a minute, guys. From Fig Ramsey's page, and I'm stealing this directly from his Facebook feed. there has been some recent things, people talking about the American Cancer Society finally swinging around and supporting vaping or putting some of their weight behind the positive aspects of vaping and things like that. Okay. And I don't think people understand the American Cancer Society in the recent, and this just the other day, recent Sacramento wants to do a flavor ban. Right from his page, the Fig says, I present Tim Gibbs' position on flavors, Director of Campaign Initiatives at American Cancer Society. Now, I'm hoping that this will pick it up and play what this guy's going to say.
Tim?
Hold on.
Thank you, and I want to applaud the council and this committee for looking at updating the tobacco retailer license proposal, and we support the proposal. However, the most important aspect of a tobacco retailer license update would be to prohibit the sale of flavored tobacco products. That's by far the biggest public health impact. As we've discussed previously, 80% of youth smokers start with flavored tobacco products. Recent ordinances that were passed in San Francisco and Richmond, our organization supported those. In fact, in San Francisco, the tobacco company spent $12 million to overturn a past ordinance through referendum, and they were, well, pun intended, they were smoked, 70-30 at the ballot, the people.
Now, this guy just said they support a flavor ban.
Yep.
That is not anything even remotely near backing up the vaping industry. I don't give a damn what anybody says.
Everyone had premature celebration when that report came out, and I couldn't figure out why they're all cheering. Oh, they support us! They support us! They believe that.
Anything
shit!
Even remotely.
All
near.
that is hey, this will alleviate the people. We say, hey, it might help with some people. It might not be as dangerous as smoking. That is very different from saying this can help you quit. This is a good choice to go with.
Yeah,
that is the difference. One is sort of placating us with fluff that doesn't really say anything compared to supporting, and yet everyone was going, oh, they support us now. They finally understand. Bullshit. They've understood from the beginning, but that does not mean they support us. They want us gone. They depend on pharma and tobacco funds for themselves, and that's the difference between North America and the UK, and same in Canada. The Heart Association, Lung Association, everything here, they depend on government funding, pharma funding, tobacco funding. In the UK, yes, for their studies, they get the finances from pharma and so forth, but the criteria is pharma and all those ones supplying the funding, they don't get any say in what studies are being done or what is being researched or checked or supported. So here, yeah, you want to keep your funding, you put together the stuff that we want, and then we will give you our funding.
Yep. I just passed both of you this. Bill, I think that you were actually the one to send this to me.
Yep.
This is the National Law Review, and I don't have it on my other desktop to be able to show people.
Dick Durbin.
Yeah, I got to get my shit together.
Dick Durbin. All I can see is Dick Durbin. That's the first thing I see. I'll link it in there in a second.
Basically, it's a continuation of a little while ago. If you remember the letter with all the senators saying we don't want the extension. They should have to follow it right away. Get rid of these flavors. In other words, putting the pressure on the FDA. This basically the follow-up.
That's today.
Again, pushing that. Okay, enough is enough. We need it done now. So it's a follow-up pressure point for them, and it gives them for when it comes to election time. Hey, this is an easy win for us. See, we are protecting people. We need this stuff gone before it kills your kids.
Yeah.
Rather than saying, we need to protect our funds. So we need your kids to smoke.
Yeah,
Please.
this is their follow-up letter that they just sent out today.
It's today. I was surprised.
You know, and like you said, Bill, it follows up on the May 2018.
Well, yeah, you don't put out one letter and then never follow up on it. You
Yeah.
keep the pressure on, especially the closer it starts getting to election. And the closer you have some of the red and blue states getting closer and closer, you want to set your battlegrounds.
Yeah.
This is what irritated me the worst, was the last paragraph in this thing. The senators closed by stating that companies that wish to use flavors in their tobacco products, and quote, should be required to demonstrate that use of flavors will benefit public health today, not 4 years from now.
And you know what's really ironic about that? They have not once been able to prove that it's been detrimental yet.
Yeah. Yeah. I just asked the FDA that.
I
Shouldn't they have to prove that it's bad
yeah.
or worse?
Why does the burden
We
of
are
proof?
guilty until proven innocent, and you
Correct.
cannot be proven innocent, because to be proven innocent, their requirement that it becomes globally
Yep.
has to be.
It's who approved and all.
It has to improve the health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, further up in this thing, it says the letter states, considerably more must be done to address this looming wave of youth tobacco addiction, in
That's correct.
part
We
by
should get rid of them all.
FDA
Every one of
inaction.
them.
Well,
Sorry.
wait a minute, guys. Didn't you read the damn CDC report that says it's not
Doesn't matter.
this crappy shit that they're trying to push now?
Doesn't matter. Don't get me started on lower nicotine either.
You got to remember, politics and law is not about facts, truth, or science. It's about power, positioning, and posturing.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. It has nothing to do with truth or facts.
No.
And that's what people don't understand. So when you're trying to fight it but we have the facts behind us. So what? That's not even used in politics.
Nope.
That's not used in setting up these laws.
No,
we
it's
set
only
it up
all
as
whatever
what sells
talking
us.
points.
It's who the best liar is. That's what it is.
Do you know, and that's another one that gets me, is we're not allowed to say so many things about the vaping industry or our vapor product, or we're not allowed to talk about health benefits. Okay, I can understand that, because some things we just cannot prove or have not done whatever study. But we can't say this is a safer product to anybody, and yet the ants and all these other crap go out with no study, no fundamental truth behind it. If somebody woke up in the morning and wiped their ass with the toilet paper and then applied that to whatever they wrote for the day.
Yep.
And don't be surprised if there's lawsuits because the toilet paper wasn't soft enough.
Yeah, it
soft
wasn't
enough on their
pre-applied.
butt.
I wouldn't have thought of
Assholes.
that. I'm going to keep talking about it. It's safer. If I was smoking and I went to this and I didn't know anybody or anything, I'd go, this is better. And that's exactly what happened for more than a year. I didn't know any better. I looked it up. I found e-cigarette forum. I tried looking up dangers. I really couldn't find much. It wasn't really, formaldehyde hadn't come out yet. And the way I look at it as a consumer is, well, I do breathe better. I do feel a little better. I can walk a little faster. And I kind of like this crap. This is pretty good. I'm not afraid of it.
Yeah.
So as a consumer, I'm going to say it and say it and say it.
And that's it, too. As a consumer, you can get out there and voice whatever it is that's on your mind, and they can't shut you down. If I went out there in a public face with Two Stone, holy
Right.
shit, I would be...
You'd be shut down.
Yeah. I'd be drawn and
You're a
quartered.
threat. You're a
There-
threat.
There's a T-shirt I would love if Fig can ever market around to everyone, or use giveaways or whatever out there, of a saying I came up with quite a while ago, almost a year ago, where I said EVP, e-liquid vapor products, are safer than smoking. That is not a medical claim. That is a scientific fact.
Yes.
Yeah, I would love to have that.
Safer than tobacco control experts, too.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? All right, I'm going to get ready and wrap some of this up. But there's one thing I got to ask both of you. It's been the poll that has been going
Snoop
on.
Dogg.
Yeah, see? Bill's like, I know what's coming. Go fuck
worked
yourself,
with
Mike. I'm going to answer
Snoop
right
Dogg.
away.
I know him. I worked with him. Definitely Snoop Dogg.
All right, now I remember the question to Dave, but I forgot the other player.
Okay, the question is, if there were a cloud comp, and I've got to chalk one up for this guy. If there were a cloud comp between Snoop Dogg and Steven Tyler, who would win?
Oh, just on reputation, it's Snoop Dogg. It's got to be.
See, that's what people are going for. All right, so that puts us at 5-3.
I worked with him long enough. Plenty enough. Trust me,
If-
Snoop Dogg.
If
Even
that
when there
guy
shouldn't be any.
he's known for his 420 capability. You know?
Yeah. God love you.
We had to do one scene, and normally you smoke up the set, which is just the fake smoke brought in to help with the lighting. And they said, okay, that's enough, too much. And the effects guy goes, wait a minute, I haven't even turned on the machine. And it was Snoop Dogg.
And just for the record, there is propylene glycol in stage smoke, right?
There's what?
Isn't propylene glycol used in stage
Yep.
smoke? Yeah. Richard Marks and I had a comment back and forth on Twitter about that a while back. And then he blocked me.
Unreal. Well, folks, this evening it was Mr. Bill Tarling up in Canada, over in Vancouver with us, and here in Ohio, Mr. Kevin Crowley. Gentlemen, I thoroughly appreciate you joining me this evening. I'm hoping that somewhere through all of this conversation that some people found some good information that they might be able to use, or better information so that they can make better decisions, or at least not be so damn mystified in some of it.
Yep.
Bill,
Or at least just give you something to think about. Don't necessarily automatically take anything that we say as the gospel and this is 100%. It's something for you to look at and think about for yourself to make your own wise decisions.
Yes, sir.
and that's
I'll
a good
add
way.
that if you have a question of anything I said, email me, kevincrowley@hotmail.com or vapinglinks.blog. If I don't know the answer, I'll probably call you guys.
And if anything that I've said that you're wondering about, always feel free to email Kevin as well.
Exactly. Then I can email you.
Bill
I've got
runs
quite
a page on Facebook called Vape Distortion, where you can find a lot of the same information, the same links, the same websites, the things that I'm talking about or that we've spoken about this evening. Wonderful place to be able to stop and be informed. And then also, Kevin, if you would tell me again your URL for your blog.
Oh, vapinglinks.blog. Vapinglinks.blog. That's it.
Because he's got links to a lot of other different sources of information. Between the two of them, people can remain nicely educated.
Yeah. And Vapors UK. Lots of links. David's, yours, quite a few.
Awesome.
I don't think I've got Bill on there. I'm going to look for Bill's. I don't know if I've got that on there.
Yep.
Or you can just go to vapedistortion.com and it'll automatically take you to the Facebook group page. I don't really do discussions on it. What I try and do is just pick out the international issues that fit for the vaping. And then there's a small group like with Mike and so on where stuff that doesn't really fit within that group, I'll send them so that they can keep track of what's happening in the tobacco industry and other industries as well.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Multi-layered problems all around the world.
Yep.
And
All
what
right,
happens in
gentlemen.
one area can affect.
I appreciate both of you taking the time to kind of walk through some of this stuff. Maybe we can hit a few people. Maybe they've gotten a little bit of an education. I hope that they have.
Hope so. Yep.
All right. I will talk to you both again sometime soon.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Mike.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
All right, folks. That was Bill Tarling up in Canada, and Kevin Crowley right here in Ohio. Hopefully you found some of the information we were able to present useful. I'm hoping that by walking through the talking points that are against vaping that they're using in Colorado, you might have learned something new. I tried to keep myself to a minimum, so I was not absolutely ranting when we talked about Juul and things like that. But by all means, anytime that you have questions, feel free to drop in, get in touch with me, get in touch with one of the other people. There are a ton of groups, and it's always information, and people that are passionate about vaping will always take the time and find the time to be able to talk to you. All right, next week I'm not here again. We're probably just going to be more talking with another shop because I want to get back into talking to some of these people as we go along. But next week, Thursday night at 7 p.m., I hope that you'll return and join me again for another episode of Vaping in the Mic. I appreciate you all taking the time to stop, listen, and check us out. And I hope that you have a good weekend. Until next time, folks.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.